Welcome, friends, readers, listeners, and viewers from across America and around the world. We appreciate you taking the time to join us this evening as we continue our introspection into the biblical narrative. I'm joined again by my good friend and co-host, Rob Skiba. Rob, are you there, brother?
I am here, Zen. How are you?
Doing well, man. How's been your week?
My week has been very busy since last we spoke. We've talked about it before, this epidemic right now of people denying Yeshua as Messiah.
Yeah.
And,
Yes.
We've had some fairly high profile people within our former circles, falling away. And, potentially taking 50,000 subscribers with them, along their journey. And man, it's like they have just descended like a plague of locusts onto my Facebook page, in recent weeks. And I'm like, okay, that's it. I'm going to get busy here. And so last Friday, I started working on a page on the Virtual House Church website. So if people want to check it out, they can go to virtualhousechurch.com, and in the main menu, scroll down to where it says Defending Messiah. And that's been like taking up a lot of my time working on this page. I mean, it started off as just like a short blog with some things against like Caesar's Messiah and Zeitgeist. And then it just keeps exploding into more and more stuff. Been really kind of stuck in Isaiah 52 and 53 for the last few days. The longer I spend in those two chapters, the more I'm finding. And it's just loaded. But I mean, the main thing is the pronouns that are used there. He, his, him versus us, we, our. He was wounded for our transgressions, bruised for our iniquities. Chastisement of our peace was upon him, and by his stripes we are healed. The anti-Messiah camp wants to say Isaiah 53 is all about Israel. I'm like, how can this be? They'd be like, for Israel was wounded for Israel's transgressions, Israel was bruised for Israel's iniquities, the chastisement of Israel's peace was upon Israel, and with Israel's stripes Israel was healed. How would that make sense to any logical thinking person?
Right.
But
come on,
anyway,
people.
Yeah. Anyway, it's kept me quite busy. If you get a chance, you might want to check it out. There's a lot there.
I definitely do.
It's long enough now that it could be a small book. What started out as a blog.
You should definitely, release it in book form.
I may do that. I'd like to get other people, involved. If I did something like that, I would like it to be a collaborative effort.
I think that would be awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, I did a whole thing on my thesis about Yeshua as the hand, and then below that the Word made flesh. So you got the hand and the Word, and I've got your videos there, the one you did, the Word of the Lord comparing ancient manuscripts, and your video, the Targum with Adam Fink. So I have both videos there, and a link to your book, by the way, which I looked on my Zen Garcia library shelf and don't appear to have.
Yeah. Oh, okay. All right. I'll get that sent out to you then.
I have, I guess Justin put it together, the Targum Isaiah. I do have that one.
Okay, yeah, those two together would be great. And I'll get it out to you this week, because he did that one before the Targum of Isaiah. So, but it will greatly benefit you to have it all together right there in one place.
Yeah, cool, man.
Especially if you're doing this study, because
for sure. Yeah, right. I mean, to see the word, and the other thing, maybe somebody else who has time out there could go back through our archives when we were going through Enoch. I mean, I can't even think of how many shows that we did on the Book of Enoch where you and I were like, "This is clearly the Messiah right here."
Right.
Like, how many times we, interject commentary after going through a chapter and be like, "This is so totally the Messiah. How can people not see this?" And there are people within this anti-Messiah movement that love the Book of Enoch. And I'm like, well,
right.
So maybe somebody out there who's got the time can go back through our archives, like 100 hours worth of Enoch commentary, and maybe send me, hey, on this video at such and such a time marker, you said this, because it would be really helpful, instead of me having to go dig through it all, try to find it again, because I'd like to put a whole section here just on messianic prophecies in Enoch.
I can provide the chapters that are specific to, as far as the messianic chapters in the book of Enoch, because I have those in the ancient prophecies of Christ. So if somebody is willing to do that, I can, I'll send you all the chapters, and that way it should at least make it that much easier to pinpoint.
Oh yeah, that'd be good. Because as I started writing this blog, I thought, you know what? And Sheila actually suggested, because I was like, I'm going to split this up into multiple separate web pages. And she's like, no, just have it all on one page, but create like an index. And so I created anchors on the page and divided it up. I put like a table of contents at the beginning of it. So right now I have introduction, debunking the so-called copycat thesis that Jesus is just a copy of other pagan deities.
Right.
Another section, debunking zeitgeist. Another one, debunking Caesar's Messiah. Then undeniable historical proof for the Jewish Messiah. That's historical proof over and above the biblical proof. And then I got another one for additional evidence. And then Christians are guilty of creating many of our own problems, dealing with, paganizing Yeshua into what we now call Jesus, December 25th and Ishtar Day.
Right.
Then Adam Fink, I don't know if you've seen his video on the angel of the Lord, but it's really good. So who was the angel of the Lord? I just put his video there.
Awesome. No, I haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, if you haven't, that's a good one. Then I have a section on Messiah's name, how we got Jesus from Yeshua through transliteration. Then the suffering servant of Isaiah 53, questionable doctrines, talking about the doctrine of dispensation and how that's got us all jacked up into thinking there's multiple brides instead of one bride. How many gods do we serve? The right hand of Yahuwah is salvation, aka Yeshua, the word made flesh, and is belief in Yeshua idolatry. So those are the
awesome
current headings that I have.
Sounds like a great book already, but certainly as I review that, I will add, as far as think of information that would be relevant, and I'll share that with you as well as I go through all that material.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. And that goes out to anybody else out there. If you've got stuff that you could add to this, I would love this to be a collaborative effort. It's like, just get this out there, and then this can be sort of a one-stop shop page for, sending people to that are dealing with these other people.
Awesome. Well, kudos to you, man, for starting the effort and putting it all together. That will definitely inspire a lot of us that, have been busy and maybe not wanting or hesitant to take on the task. That certainly we can assist without a doubt.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. It's like this week I couldn't do anything else. It was like I wake up in the morning and I'm like obsessing over, a topic, and like, okay, fine. It's been the whole day writing about it, but yeah. Anyway, that's been my week. What you been up to this week?
Excellent. I am working on the Enochian lunar solar calendar that begins in March, and trying to get it out, before all of Passover coming up on the 27th. And so setting all that up, and then we're also going to do classes. Diane Cover is going to teach some classes on the Enochian calendar as well. So we're trying to get all that set up, and then I'm actually going to be helping my friends from Destiny Lab put together a book of all of their lyrics and all of their albums. Yeah, and so because their songs are really profound. Yeah, and so I'm going to be working together with them to do something, and I'm also helping Noel, which interestingly, he and Adam went down to try to speak with Justin on all this, and he said it didn't go so great, but they did,
Yeah.
want to sit down and talk with them, but and so
Yeah, I haven't spoken with Noel yet, but I did speak with Adam right after that meeting.
yeah, so we're praying for the brother, and perhaps what you're doing now, and all of us adding to and contributing, that maybe it will give him something to reconsider, because he does have a lot of people, I believe, following in his footsteps on this.
Yeah.
And it's clear that those that deny Yeshua, they are Antichrist. I mean, and there's no other way around it. And,
well, that's the thing.
Be unfortunate.
That's what got me going. Is I really care about these people.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
This is a serious issue. I mean, this is eternity is a long time to be wrong.
Right. Exactly. Yes.
So I was trying to see where we left out. I know I read Genesis 32, and I believe you were reading from, I think it was Legends of the Jews when we closed out my show last week. I don't know that you did a Targum version of 32.
Yeah, I'm not. Let me see where I ended up on the Targum.
We're talking. It was the section of, I think, Jacob wrestling with the angel.
Yes, yeah, I did make it through 32 and stopped on 33 on the Targum.
Okay.
And then I do believe I was reading through the Legends of the Jews.
Yeah. Okay. So
when
then
he was crossing over, yes.
Then I think I need to get us caught up in Joshua. Then I think that's probably. I think we're behind in Joshua. Okay. What do we got? 15 minutes or so before the break. Maybe we'll get through most of this.
Yes, we got a little time.
All right, I'll jump in here.
All right.
Joshua, make sure this is Joshua. Yep, Joshua 32. And at that time, Jacob sent messengers to his brother Esau toward the land of Seir, and he spoke to him words of supplication. And he commanded them, saying, Thus shall ye say to my lord, to Esau, Thus saith thy servant Jacob, Let not my lord imagine that my father's blessing with which he did bless me has proved beneficial to me. For I have been these 20 years with Laban, and he deceived me and changed my wages 10 times, and it has all been already told unto my lord. And I served him in his house very laboriously, and God afterwards saw my affliction, my labor, and the work of my hands, and he caused me to find grace and favor in his sight. And I afterward, through God's great mercy and kindness, acquired oxen and asses and cattle and men servants and maid servants. And now I am coming to my land and my home, to my father and mother, who are in the land of Canaan. And I have sent to let my Lord know all this in order to find favor in the sight of my Lord, so that he may not imagine that I have of myself obtained wealth, or that the blessing with which my father blessed me has benefited me. And those messengers went to Esau and found him on the borders of the land of Edom, going toward Jacob, and 400 men of the children of Seir, the Horite, were standing with drawn swords. And the messengers of Jacob told Esau all the words that Jacob had spoken to them concerning Esau. And Esau answered them with pride and contempt, and said unto them, Surely I have heard, and truly it has been told unto me that what Jacob has done to Laban, who exalted him in his house, and gave him his daughters and wives, and he begat sons and daughters, and abundantly increased in wealth and riches in Laban's house through his means. And when he saw that his wealth was abundant and his riches great, he fled with all belonging to him from Laban's house. And he led Laban's daughters away from the face of their father as captives taken by the sword, without telling him of it. And not only to Laban has Jacob done thus, but also unto me has he done so, and has twice supplanted me. And shall I be silent? Now therefore I have this day come with my camps to meet him, and I will do unto him according to the desire of my heart. And the messengers returned and came to Jacob, and said unto him, We came to thy brother, to Esau, and we told him all thy words, and thus has he answered us, and behold, he cometh to meet thee with 400 men. Now then know and see what thou shalt do, and pray before God to deliver thee from him. And when he heard the words of his brother, which he had spoken to the messengers of Jacob, Jacob was greatly afraid and was distressed. And Jacob prayed to the Lord his God, and he said, O Lord God of my fathers, Abraham and Isaac, thou didst say unto me when I went away from my father's house, saying, I am the Lord God of thy father Abraham, and the God of Isaac. Unto thee do I give this land, and thy seed after thee. And I will make thy seed as the stars of heaven, and thou shalt spread forth to the four sides of heaven. And in thee and in thy seed shall all the families of the earth be blessed. And thou didst establish thy words, and didst give unto me riches and children and cattle, as the utmost wishes of my heart thou give unto thy servant. Thou didst give unto me all that I asked from thee, and so that I lack nothing. And thou didst afterwards say unto me, return to thy parents and to thy birthplace, and I will still do well with thee. And now that I have come, and thou didst deliver me from Laban, I shall fall in the hands of Esau, who will slay me, yea, together with the mothers of my children. Now therefore, O Lord God, deliver me, I pray thee, also from the hands of my brother Esau, for I am greatly afraid of him. And if there is no righteousness in me, do it for the sake of Abraham and my father Isaac. For I know that through kindness and mercy have I acquired this wealth. Now therefore I beseech thee to deliver me this day with kindness, and to answer me. And Jacob ceased praying to the Lord, and he divided the people that were with him with the flocks and cattle into two camps, and he gave the half to the care of Damasek, the daughter of the son of Eleazar, Abraham's servant, for a camp with his children, and the other half he gave to the care of his brother Elianus, the son of Eleazar, to be for a camp with his children. And he commanded them, saying, keep yourselves at a distance from your camps, and do not come too near each other. And if Esau come to one camp and slay it, the other camp at a distance from it will escape him. And Jacob tarried there that night, and during the whole night he gave his servants instructions concerning the forces and his children. And the Lord heard the prayer of Jacob on that day, and the Lord then delivered Jacob from the hands of his brother Esau. And the Lord sent 3 angels of the angels of heaven, and they went before Esau and came to him. And these angels appeared unto Esau and his people as 2,000 men, riding upon horses furnished with all sorts of war instruments. And they appeared in the sight of Esau and all his men to be divided into 4 camps, with 4 chiefs to them. And one camp went on, and they found Esau coming with 400 men toward his brother Jacob. And this camp ran toward Esau and his people and terrified them. And Esau fell off the horse in alarm, and all his men separated from him in that place, for they were greatly afraid. And the whole of the camp shouted after them when they fled from Esau. And all the warlike men answered, saying, surely we are the servants of Jacob, who is the servant of God. And who then can stand against us? And Esau said unto them, O then my Lord and brother Jacob is your Lord, whom I have not seen for these 20 years. And now that I have this day come to see him, do you treat me in this manner? And the angels answered him, saying, as the Lord liveth, were not Jacob, of whom thou speakest, thy brother, we had not let one remain from thee and thy people, but only on account of Jacob we will do nothing to them. And this camp passed from Esau and his men, and it went away. And Esau and his men had gone from them about a league, when the second camp came toward him with all sorts of weapons. And they also did unto Esau and his men as the first camp had done to them. And when they had left it to go on, behold, the third camp came toward him, and they were all terrified. And Esau fell off the horse, and the whole camp cried out and said, surely we are the servants of Jacob, who is the servant of God, and who can stand against us? And Esau again answered them, saying, O then Jacob my Lord, and your Lord is my brother. And for 20 years I have not seen his countenance, and hearing this day that he was coming, I went this day to meet him. And do you treat me in this manner? And they answered him and said unto him, as the Lord liveth, were not Jacob thy brother, as thou didst say, we had not left him a remnant from thee and thy men. But on account of Jacob, of whom thou speakest, being thy brother, We will not meddle with thee or thy men. And the third camp also passed from them, and he still continued his road with his men toward Jacob, when the fourth camp came toward him, and they also did unto him and his men as the others had done. And when Esau beheld the evil which the fourth angels had done to him and to his men, he became greatly afraid of his brother Jacob, and he went to meet him in peace. And Esau and Esau concealed his hatred against Jacob because he was afraid of his life on account of his brother Jacob, and because he imagined that the four camps that had lighted upon were Jacob's servants. And Jacob tarried that night with his servants in their camp, and he resolved with his servants to give unto Esau a present from all that he had with him and from all his property. And Jacob rose up in the morning, he and his men, and they chose from amongst the cattle a present for Esau. And this is the amount of the present which Jacob chose from his flock to give unto his brother Esau. And he selected 240 head from the flocks. And he selected from the camels and asses 30 each. And of the herds he chose 50 kine. And he put them all in 10 droves, and he placed each sort by itself, and he delivered them unto the hands of 10 of his servants, each drove by itself. And he commanded them and said unto them, keep yourselves at a distance from each other, and put a space between the droves. And when Esau and those who are with him shall meet you, and ask you, saying, whose are you, and whither do you go, and to whom belongeth all this before you? You shall say unto them, we are the servants of Jacob, and we come to meet Esau in peace. And behold, Jacob cometh behind us. And that which is before us is a present sent from Jacob to his brother Esau. And if they shall say unto you, why doth he delay behind you from coming to meet his brother and to see his face? Then you shall say unto them, surely he cometh joyfully behind us to meet his brother. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goeth to him, and after this I will see his face. Peradventure he will accept of me. So the whole present passed on in the hands of his servants, and went before him on that day. And he lodged that night with his camps by the border of the brook Jabbok. And he arose up in the midst of the night, and he took his wives and his maidservants and all belonging to him, and he that night passed over the ford Jabbok. And when he passed along belonging to him over the brook, Jacob was left by himself. And a man met him, and he wrestled with him that night until the breaking of the day. And the hall of Jacob's thigh was out of joint through wrestling with him. And at the break of day, the man left Jacob there, and he blessed him and went away. And Jacob passed the brook at the break of day, and he halted upon his thigh. And the sun rose upon him when he had passed the brook, and he came up to the place of his cattle and children. And they went on till midday, and whilst they were going, the present was passing on before them. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was at a distance, coming along with many men, about 400. And Jacob was greatly afraid of his brother. And Jacob hastened and divided his children unto his wives and his handmaids, and his daughter Dinah he put in a chest, and delivered her into the hands of his servants. And he passed before his children and wives to meet his brother, and he bowed down to the ground. Yea, he bowed down 7 times until he approached his brother. And God caused Jacob to find grace and favor in the sight of Esau and his men, for God had heard the prayer of Jacob. And the fear of Jacob and his terror fell upon his brother Esau, for Esau was greatly afraid of Jacob for what the angels of God had done to Esau. And Esau's anger against Jacob was turned into kindness. And when Esau saw Jacob running toward him, he also ran toward him, and he embraced him. And he fell upon his neck, and they kissed, and they wept. And God put fear and kindness toward Jacob in the hearts of the men that came with Esau. And they also kissed Jacob and embraced him. And also Eliphaz, the son of Esau, with his 4 brothers, sons of Esau, wept with Jacob, and they kissed him and embraced him, for the fear of Jacob had fallen upon them all. And Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women with their offspring, the children of Jacob, walking behind Jacob and bowing along the road to Esau. And Esau said unto Jacob, who are these with thee, my brother? And are they thy children or thy servants? And Jacob answered Esau and said, they are my children, which God hath graciously given to thy servant. And whilst Jacob was speaking to Esau and his men, Esau beheld the whole camp, and he said unto Jacob, whence did thou get the whole of the camp that I met yesternight? Jacob said, to find favor in the sight of my Lord, it is that which God graciously gave to thy servant. And the present came before Esau, and Jacob pressed Esau, saying, Take, I pray thee, the present that I have brought to my Lord. And Esau said, Wherefore is this my purpose? Keep that which thou hast unto thyself. And Jacob said, It is incumbent upon me to give all this, since I have seen thy face, that thou still livest in peace. And Esau refused to take the present. And Jacob said unto him, I beseech thee, my Lord, if now I found favor in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For I have therefore seen thy face, as though I had seen a godlike face, because thou wast pleased with me. And Esau took the present, and we were going to break.
All right, we'll be right back, everyone.
Hey everyone, it's Chris Gio, founder of Truth Frequency Radio and host of Beyond the Veil. The mainstream media and establishment are running scared right now, and they've prominently featured truthfrequencyradio.com as number 89 on the federal government's hit list, also known as the fake news list, which is essentially a list of sites slated for censorship on Facebook, YouTube, Google, and other social media. Now is the time for you to get involved. Share your favorite TFR shows far and wide on forums and social media. Tell your friends and family about your favorite shows. If you're a business owner, get in touch with us to feature your product or service right here on TFR. And if you haven't done so already, become a TFR supporter now and get unlimited commercial-free downloads in high quality. Visit truthfrequencyradio.com/sign-up. Thank you for making TFR the leader in independent and uncensored talk radio. Truth Frequency Radio, your protection from deception.
So, you love talk radio? Then you'll love TalkStreamLive.com. TalkStream Live is always on, 24/7, with the best streaming talk shows. Find your favorite talkers and discover some new ones. It's free, readily available online or on mobile with any smartphone or tablet. Finding your favorite talk shows all in one place has gotten a whole lot easier. Just go to TalkStreamLive.com. Be sure to download the free apps from Google Play or the iTunes App Store.
If you have hard water, the lime scale not only leaves white spots, it clogs pipes and breaks down appliances, costing you hundreds of dollars in energy and wear. Eliminate lime scale and other water issues like brown staining and bad odors with HydroCare water products, available from Wave Home Solutions. Wave's affordable water systems don't use salts or chemicals. You'll love the way your water tastes, smells, and looks. Satisfaction guaranteed. For more information, go to bestwater123.com. That's bestwater123.com.
For millennia, mankind has been searching for answers to the big questions, such as, where did the universe come from? Where did we come from? Why are we here? Are we alone? And just what the heck is the Sasquatch all about? I can't promise you answers, and neither can the Woo Crew, but they invite you to join them Friday night at 7 p.m. Eastern, midnight in the UK, for Freaky Friday, exclusively on Truth Frequency Radio. Spirituality, multiverse, quantum mechanics, the occult, and so much conspiracy analysis that it will make your mind melt. Take my word for it. Freaky Friday. It's more than a show. It's a way of life. I am Stephen Hawking, and I am proud to be a Wookiee.
No hate, no hype, no fear.
You're listening to Truth Frequency Radio.
We are TFR.
And in those days, there were giants in the land, and the sons of the angels of God looked upon the daughters of men and found them fair, and took of them wives, and their sons became of old great men of renown. So they have been mixing with us on a genetic level since the time of Enoch and Ezekiel's will.
Here on Earth we're intrigued by the sun, moon, and stars, and imagine there's got to be planets like ours. So conceive of a face on the surface of Mars, so in need of a meaning and purpose we've lost. And indeed they believe that they these might be our gods, or that maybe with time we'll do right and evolve and eventually reach what they seek and then solve all the problems of man. But they really don't know that they fall, and the works of our hands are but just filthy rags. So we travel the lands to dig up our past. Time elapses, and with it are much of the facts. Some imagine that gods came in alien class and reacted.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for second portion. Rob, I'm going to just turn it back over to you.
Okay, cool. Who's the voice at the beginning of that song? Do you know?
Archaeologic Genetics is the one that does the beats. But Archaeologic, they do a show, I believe, as well.
He's got a great voice.
Oh, you mean at the very
intro.
beginning? You mean like the intro quote?
Yeah, the quote of Ezekiel's wheel. That guy.
Yeah, you know what? I don't know, but I'll ask them.
Yeah, if you talk to him, ask.
I'll get an answer.
Got a great voice. That's the kind of voice I could certainly use for somebody in Seed. You know.
Yeah, I'll ask him and let you know.
Yeah, cool. All right. Let's see. I think I left off in verse 65, I believe. And Esau took the present, and Jacob also gave unto Esau silver and gold and bdellium, for he pressed him so much that he took them. And Esau divided the cattle that were in the camp, and he gave the half to the men who had come with him, for they had come on hire, and the other half he delivered unto the hands of his children. And the silver and gold and bdellium he gave in the hands of Eliphaz, his eldest son. And Esau said unto Jacob, Let us remain with thee, and we will go slowly along with thee until thou comest to my place with me, that we may dwell there together. And Jacob answered his brother and said, I would do as my Lord speaketh unto me, but my Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with their children, or with their young, who are with me, go but slowly. For if they went swiftly, they would all die, for thou knowest their burdens and their fatigue. Therefore, let my Lord pass on before his servant, and I will go on slowly for the sake of the children and the flock until I come to the Lord's place to Seir. And Esau said unto Jacob, I will place with thee some of the people that are with me to take care of thee in the road, and to bear thy fatigue and burden. And he said, What needeth it, my Lord, if I may find grace in thy sight? Behold, I will come unto thee to Seir, to dwell there together as thou hast spoken. Go thou then with thy people, and I will follow thee. And Jacob said this to Esau in order to remove Esau and his men from him, so that Jacob might afterward go to his father's house to the land of Canaan. And Esau hearkened to the voice of Jacob, and Esau returned with the 400 men that were with him on their road to Seir. And Jacob, all belonging to him, went that day as far as the extremity of the land of Canaan in its borders, and he remained there some time. And that's the end of that chapter. That's so funny, man. The 4 angel camps.
And how they mistreated Esau and softened him up.
He kept falling off the horse. Zoinks! Zoinks! He fell off the horse again. What is it said? It looked like it said he sent 3 angels. Where does it say that? I don't remember I forgot what verse that was, but it looked like it said, in verse 28. And the Lord sent 3 angels of the angels of heaven, and they went before Esau and came to him. And these angels appeared unto Esau and his men as 2,000 men riding upon horses furnished with all sorts of war instruments. And they appeared in the sight of Esau and all his men to be divided into 4 camps. So we got 3 angels masquerading as 2,000 warriors on horses. Divided up into 4 camps. That must have been quite a sight.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, and some of the manuscripts it also describe that he hears the noise, like armies come galloping and terrorizes them, because 400 men, so when you have all these and they were bedecked with all these weapons of war, and you can imagine what angels as far as the soldiers of God look like and how
Yeah.
intimidating they must be.
They had to have been quite fierce.
Oh,
Esau
yeah, I'm sure.
falls off his horse. And Esau fell off the horse in alarm, and all his men separated. Like everybody's like, oh, zoinks! Everybody takes off in a different direction. And then they're both all. Well, I mean, of course, Jacob's afraid of Esau, but I don't get any indication that Jacob is aware of this.
No, not at all.
Because he sends all those gifts forward. To the gifts were his of trying to appease his brother. Like maybe if he sees all this, it'll be cool. But not knowing that God had already answered his prayer with, 2,000 angels divided into 4 camps.
Right. Yeah, he fully expected to be massacred, or at least some portion of his company.
Well, yeah, it looks like
them into separate contingents.
Yeah, it looks like each camp comes and says what they say, and then keep riding off, like right away from him. Because there's and then the second wave comes, and third, and then fourth.
Right.
So Esau has to be thinking, okay, I've got 2,000, I've got 4 camps, 2,000 of these, crazy war people that just passed me, so they're at my rear, and I don't know what Jacob's got in front of me. I mean, he had to have been thinking, well, I'm sandwiched here between, if Jacob's got this many of these sending ahead of time, what has he got in reserve?
Right. Right. Yes.
The other thing is, I mean, even though Jacob had gotten the birthright and the blessing, taken away from Esau, Jacob ended up leaving with nothing, except the clothes on his back. That's why he had to basically be a slave to Laban. He had nothing. He couldn't pay a dowry or anything for the daughters, or he had to work for him for 7 years each. So I mean, even though Esau got cheated out of those things, he still ended up with all those things. He ended up with the blessing. He ended up with, in terms of material goods, I'm talking. He may not have had the verbal blessing of his father, but he certainly ended up with a whole lot of material goods.
Yes. Yeah, and then also all the people that were around him were also blessed, even with the way that the water overflowed. So the Most High made sure that not only would Jacob be blessed, but all those that were around him would be blessed through him. And they recognized that as well. Laban and the others that worked with Jacob, wives also.
That's funny, though, because on the one hand, they realized that they were incredibly blessed by Jacob, but yet they still felt like, well, this is all our stuff. And Jacob took off with all our stuff. He wouldn't have had it. It's like Laban had this attitude. Jacob wouldn't have any of that stuff if it wasn't for me. When the reality of it is, Laban wouldn't have had any of that stuff if it wasn't for Jacob.
Exactly. Right.
But Laban, we saw earlier, had sent his messengers ahead of time to tell Esau, look what he did to me. I know what he did to you. Look what he did to me.
Right.
It's a big soap opera going on there.
Yes, it is. And then we saw also how in the other stories that Esau also tries to bring in the Ishmaelites, Ishmael, and to get his help to not only kill his father, but also his brother. And that's a part of the story that we don't hear in the Genesis narrative as well.
Yeah. Someone in the chat room says, is it possible Jacob felt bad for what he did for the blessing? Yeah, I think so. I think at this stage, clearly he's trying. Yeah, he's been afraid of Esau because he knows what he did. That's why he's afraid of him. I mean, and then he wants to give him all this stuff, and Esau's like, no. And then Esau finally takes it, but then divides it up to basically pay for the armies that he brought with him. He gives everything to them. But I mean, at this point, certainly, however the means, whatever the means it took for this to happen, there's a reconciliation that appears to be taking place here.
Right. Right. And that's huge, as far as being able to bring, because Esau was set on blood. And even though, things get out of hand and then they end up warring later, their children and the two families, they continue to battle, and there's the ongoing enmity between them. But still, there, for there to be reconciliation and forgiveness, and all the children that were with Esau to actually see this and to also be led, convicted to find forgiveness and to have reconciliation. That's pretty huge.
That is pretty huge, and it's almost like Yahuwah is like, "Okay, kids, it's time to wake up."
Right. Yeah, exactly.
Enough is enough, right? Makes me wonder, though, if when Jeremiah, we talked about this last week or the week before, he says, even regarding the last days being even as the days of Jacob's trouble, that we see that Jacob's affliction, his time of trouble, lasted 20 years. And it was divided up into 7 years where he was trying for Rachel, but ended up with Leah, who produced Judah.
Right. Yeah.
Then, after a week of her time, being with her husband, Rachel was given to him, but he had to work another 7 years, to work it off. So, and she produces Joseph, who produces Ephraim. So you have Judah and Ephraim, which are the two sticks of Ezekiel. The stick of Ephraim and the stick of Judah. So you have 14 years there, and then you have 6 years of trials wherein he's building his wealth with the whole family together. So it makes me wonder if the last days are going to play out in similar fashion, where perhaps the first 7 of the 20 years equates to difficulty for Judah. The second 7 years equates to difficulty for Ephraim. And then when Ephraim and Judah finally are united as the two sticks come together, that they both have to endure 6 years of trials together. And then when Edom finally comes to make the last war with his brother, God and his angels, Yeshua and his angels come down, and it's the same. It's a repeat. Like if it all is a big repeat, and then finally there's reconciliation, and then turn the page, and we're in the millennial reign. I don't know. It's just something I've been bouncing around in my head.
Interesting. That's an interesting thought. There seems to be cycles of things like that playing out in the life and the patriarchs and the prophets and Israel as a nation. And so, yeah, totally. I could see something like that happening and occurring and repeating itself in some manner, in theme or concept. So,
I mean, I don't pretend to know exactly what that looks like, and it certainly flies in the face of standard eschatology that's always got their happy charts with the 7 years divided up, especially pre-trippers. Pre-trippers that think the church is going out first and then all that. So it's a different take on it. But, Chris White had done, what is it, Psalm 89, 83 or 89? I forget. Is it Psalm 83? The Psalm 83 war. There's a war that, most eschatology people, especially if they're in a of the mindset of a tribulation to come, they believe that this war has to take place first. But he did a sort of a debunking video on that whole idea a number of years ago. I can't remember now. It was quite good. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but I'll see if I can look it up maybe on the next break. Pretty good though. I mean, he kind of flipped it on its head, like almost a total reversal of what you typically hear from most end times preachers. Are you familiar with that? Or?
No, I'm not. But I tend to think that, a lot of what people accept in majority opinion is probably not accurate, just because everything that I've seen and come to discernment on has been contrary to a lot of that.
Yeah, I tend to, same thing, be a contrarian, that pretty much like if the masses are doing it, it's probably the opposite.
Yeah, exactly.
You know.
Right.
So Chris White's, I think his YouTube channel is Verse by Verse BT. I think that's the name of his channel. But yeah, if you haven't, okay, it's he did this 6 years ago. Wow, I can't believe it's been that long ago. It's called. Let me see if I put it up on the screen for people here. For those watching on YouTube, it's the YouTube channel is Verse by Verse BT. All is one word, no spaces. And this looks like, if you click on the videos, it's the third video up on the top row. The Psalm 80 war problem. False Christ will be. It says false Christ. Will the Antichrist claim to be the Jewish Messiah? Interesting video. I have to go back and watch it. It's been a long time since I looked at it.
Right on. Yeah, I think the Antichrist will certainly claim to be the Jewish Messiah.
There we go. Yeah. It's, all this stuff that I've been doing lately is as far as studying the Messiah and people who are now anti-Messiah, they're all quoting, modern Jewish people, Tovia Singer type people, but it was interesting. I posted something today. I added to the study that I was doing on Isaiah 53. Let me go back there. There was a whole, so 83. I added a whole section at the end of it today, dealing with. I put Isaiah wasn't the only one. I should have put Christians, and Christians aren't the only ones to recognize Messiah in chapter 52, 53. Numerous ancient rabbinic sources also did too. For an extensive list of quotations and other insights from a Jewish perspective, please see, and I got a bunch of links here, but one of them just had lots of ancient rabbinic midrash talking about how they understood Isaiah 53 to be messianic in nature. So, I mean, there's definitely gonna be a clash of understanding in the last days on who the Messiah is, and in the midst of all that, there's going to be the Antichrist, who's going to cater to those who don't believe that Jesus or Yeshua was the original Messiah.
Right. Yeah, there's a passage in the Apocalypse of Peter, which interestingly has and speaks about what the parable of the fig tree means. Peter actually asked him, but in explaining about the fig tree, it also speaks about how the Jews denying Messiah, that they will accept Antichrist as the coming of their Messiah.
Yeah. We got about 5 minutes or so before the break. Was there anything else you wanted to read before we go into Genesis 33? Any other complimentary?
No. Well, when we can read that first, and then I can go into the Legends of the Jews, which parallels the story that you just read. So. Okay.
Somebody in the chat room asked, what do you think about Joseph Gregory Hallett? He claims to be the Messiah and the rightful king. Well, he's pretty much disappeared right now. He was all the rage, 6-7 months ago or something like that. You don't really see much of him these days, but I think the guy's just a nutcase, frankly. I mean, he has a lot of pretty outlandish claims that on the surface seem like he's got some justification for, but I haven't seen any world leader validate any of it. I haven't. There's all this speculation that the Pope has renounced his Vicar of Christ title, and it's because of him, and everything that's going on with our president and the royal house, in the UK and elsewhere. All this stuff is happening because everybody's about to abdicate their thrones of leadership to this guy, but none of that's happened. And frankly, if you really spent time listening to the guy, he's just in my opinion, just out of his mind crazy. Did you get into that at all? Did you look into his?
I looked into it, but until something bigger happens, I'm not gonna accept or believe. I mean, and he does talk really crazy, as far as declaring himself to be like Christ, and he's got all these accolades and supposed all these titles, but we'll see how it plays out. If he all of a sudden starts calling fire down from heaven, then
and if in fact world leaders do finally abdicate their positions and bend the knee to him and announce him as something, but I mean, he's far from anything that at least that I would. Well, of course, I believe that Nimrod's the Antichrist anyway, but this guy, his appearance, his demeanor, and everything about, there's nothing about him that would make me say, who is like him? Who could make war with him?
Yeah, right.
The descriptions we get in Revelation 13 and 17 just don't fit.
Wonder
Although,
at the beast.
Yeshua did say there would be many false Christs,
right?
Claiming many things. So,
True
he could just be one of the many in that regard.
Right. And there's going to be, I'm sure, a lot that come on the scene, because there are people all over the world that declare themselves to be Christ, and there are people that believe them. There's some guy in Australia, and I think he talked some woman into believing that that she was Mary Magdalene in past life or something like that. There's another one in Florida. I mean, they're all over now, and so we are certainly in that age.
Yeah, I tell people, like, look, for me, it's easier to work backwards, to go to Revelation 17 first, then Revelation 13, then Revelation 9, go read Matthew 24, Luke 21, go back, read Micah chapter 5. There's a number of places. It's sort of, I find it easier to go backwards in that order because of the way the descriptions are given, and just set those up, put up a spreadsheet somewhere as a checklist. And anytime you hear somebody claiming anything, look at your checklist and say, does this match?
Yeah, right. Right.
Has the bottomless pit been opened? No. Okay. Then, like, I mean, when Obama was president, there were so many people trying to.
Oh, right. I know.
Convince me. I'm like, guys, look, the Antichrist from Kenya or from Hawaii or wherever he thinks he's from. And frankly, I had a hard time believing that the Antichrist is going to need a teleprompter to address sixth graders. I mean, Obama actually needs a teleprompter when he's talking to sixth graders. I'm like, yeah, that doesn't inspire. Who is like him? Who can do that?
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, and a lot of people did buy into that and say that and believe that, but and I think he's going to be some kind of fallen angelic, ancient alien type. So we'll see.
Yeah, I'm of the. Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I'm of the. Even though I believe it's Nimrod, I think that the way he makes his entrance is going to be, quite a bit of fanfare around it. That people are going to be like, "Whoa,"
right?
That it inspires
all the world will wonder.
Yeah, the whole world wonders. People could die. Everybody's like, Trump's the Antichrist, right? I'm like, oh, brother. First of all, the whole world hates him. How can he be the Antichrist? Everybody hates him. Everybody loves this guy, when he shows up.
Right.
And why does it always have to be an American president anyway? It's like Americans are so egotistical. It's like, this year, that's why, I was definitely not a supporter of Hillary Clinton. No way. But I was kind of getting anxious and wondering, what are people going to say if she becomes president? Because it's like every president, pretty much in my lifetime, most of them have been candidates for the Antichrist,
Right.
It's like, no, guys, the scripture's not about this.
I don't see how she escaped not going to jail, but.
Well, to me, it just proves that the cabal, the swamp, is way deeper.
All intact. Yeah.
It's intact, and Trump promised to drain the swamp, and I think he actually probably did make a good effort to make that happen until he realized the swamp is as deep as the San Andreas was. Not San Andreas. What's the what's that? Oh, the Marianas Trench.
Yeah.
The swamp is as deep as the Marianas Trench.
Mhm.
He didn't have people on his side to do anything.
You pretty much have to throw out the whole government
Oh yeah,
to get anything really.
the government, the judicial system, even down to the local level.
Yeah.
You know.
Fully. All right, we are. Well, we should have already heard the music, but we're 12 seconds out. So
Okay.
yeah, we'll be right back, everyone, for second hour.
Hi, my name is Ella, and I'm 10 years old. I'm one of the millions of children born.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing. As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
With commerce being monopolized by major corporations, we feel a responsibility to return to handmade goods and to support individuals in the community. Sacred Word Publishing wants to encourage truth seekers to support each other. And one of the best ways we can do that is through offering this centralized marketplace where everyone's homemade products can be easily accessed by our fellow members in the body of Christ. Would you be interested in offering your handcrafted items in our store? Email us at sacredwordpublishingllc@gmail.com. Support the truth-seeking community by going to www.swpmarket.com. Many truth seekers are constantly studying alone. But there is a place where we can come together. The Digital Readers Club is our online ecclesia meant for those who've forsaken churchianity, but still want the closeness of a family to study with. Join us every Saturday at 7 p.m. Eastern Time to put together the puzzle pieces of truth scattered throughout the ancient scriptures.
Your partnership with Sacred Word Publishing goes further than the publishing of ancient manuscripts and weekly video content.
You also make a huge impact across the earth in orphanages in Myanmar, India, Uganda, and Kenya.
Your support is crucial for the development of the ecclesia of real truth seekers.
We thank you for joining us in hosting Secrets Revealed, Momentary Zen, the Digital Readers Club, Ask Me Anything series, and other shows that have helped lead so many to the truth of salvation.
become even more involved, please visit patreon.com/sacredwordpublishing, where you can partake in exclusive, interactive, patron-only content and help us continue shining the light of love in this darkened world.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for second hour. We are moving into Genesis chapter 33. I'll turn it back over to you, Rob.
Okay, I'll read that. Genesis 33. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men. And he divided the children unto Leah and unto Rachel and unto the two handmaids. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And he passed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. And Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children and said, Who are those with thee? And he said, The children which God hath graciously given thy servant. Then the handmaidens came near, they and their children, and they bowed themselves. And Leah also with her children came near and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. And he said, What meanest thou by all this drove which I met? And he said, These are to find grace in the sight of my Lord. And Esau said, I have enough, my brother, keep that thou hast unto thyself. And Jacob said, Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For therefore I have seen thy face as though I had seen the face of God, and thou wast pleased with me. Take, I pray thee, my blessing that is brought to thee, because God hath dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. And he urged him, and he took it. And he said, Let us take our journey, and let us go, and I will go before thee. And he said unto him, My Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and herds with young are with me. And if men should override them one day, all the flock will die. Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, and I will lead on softly, according as the cattle that goeth before me, and the children be able to endure until I come unto my Lord unto Seir. And Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the folk that are with me. And he said, What needeth it? It let me find grace in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way unto Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth and built him a house and made booths for his cattle. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came to Shalem, a city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan. And he came from Padan Aram and pitched his tent before the city. And he bought a parcel of a field where he had spread his tent at the hand of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar and called it he called it Elohela Israel, something like that. Butchered that one probably. But yeah, this is the first parcel of land in the land of Canaan that was bought by the house of Abraham, and it's Shechem. I mean, other than the cave that, like Sarah was, I guess that was purchased by Ephron or by Abraham with Ephron the Hittite.
Right.
But that's just a burial place. So this is a living space, Shechem. Yeah, and I've come to the opinion that because if you do a keyword search on Shechem, just lots of interesting things happen in this location. That it's my opinion that that's ground zero of Eden here on Earth, which is why everything keeps coming back to this place. But that was something I came to a while ago.
Well, definitely, part of the land of promise and the Holy Land, and that which was reserved for, and I think was also betrothed over to Shem when they divided all the land, and that Abraham was received it because it was usurped from his people to begin with.
Right, because the Hamites came in there, specifically the Canaanites, and
yes, Canaanites
just completely took over. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you. When the three sons got off the ark and they were dividing up the land as they were going to go their separate ways, that was the land that Shem had originally got assigned.
Yes, I fully agree. And so they're basically re-given their inheritance. And then when they enter into Canaan, they are taking their birthright. Or reclaiming their birthright.
Yeah. There was something else. I'm trying to think real quick what else it was that caught my attention here. That Joseph was specifically mentioned. Let me go and put it back on the screen here. Because he divides everybody up, Leah, Rachel, the handmaids, and then Leah and Rachel. But it specifically says Rachel and Joseph hindermost. And then as they are coming and bowing themselves before Esau, it says, and Leah also with their children came near and bowed themselves. And after came Joseph near and Rachel, and they bowed themselves. So Joseph's like taking the lead here. I'm not sure how old Joseph is at this point, but we see him certainly stepping up in the family here. It looks like.
Mm-hmm. He was one of the younger.
He's younger of the brothers for sure.
Yeah.
I just find it interesting that he's the only son mentioned here by name, and you don't see Reuben, Simeon, Judah, or anybody else here.
All right. Yeah, that is interesting.
All right. So you want to read from Targum or Legends?
Yeah, I'll do the Targum first, and then since we just finished Genesis 33, I'll do this, and it's the same story in the Legends of the Jews, so I'll pick up there. Let me go ahead and share this. All right. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau came, and with him 400 men of war, and he divided the children unto Leah and to Rachel, and to the two concubines, and placed the concubines and their sons foremost. For he said, if Esau come to destroy the children and abuse the woman, he will do it with them, and meantime we will arise and encounter him in fight, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph after them. And he himself went over before them, praying and asking mercy before the Lord, and he bowed upon the earth 7 times, until he met with his brother, and Esau ran to meet him, and embraced him, and fell upon his neck, and kissed him. And they wept. Esau wept on account of the pain of his teeth, which were shaken, but Jacob wept because of the pain of his neck. Jerusalem. And Esau ran to meet him, and hugged him, and fell upon his neck, and kissed him. Esau wept for the crushing of his teeth, and Jacob wept for the tenderness of his neck. And he lifted up his eyes and saw the wives and the children, and said, who are these with thee? And he said, they are the souls which have been given to me through mercy from before the Lord upon thy servant. And the concubines came near, they and their children, and bowed themselves. And Leah also approached, and her children, and bowed. And afterward Joseph came near and stood before Rachel, and hid her by his stature, and they bowed. And he said, what to thee is all this troop that I have met? And he said, it is a present. I have sent to find mercy in the eyes of my Lord. And Esau said, I have much substance, my brother. Let what thou hast be confirmed to thee. And Jacob said, say not so, I beseech thee. If now I have found favor in thy eyes, accept my present from my hand, because I have seen the look of thy face, and it is to me as the vision of the face of thy angel. For lo, thou art propitious to me. Receive now the present, which is brought to thee, because it hath been given me through mercy from before the Lord. and because I have much substance. And he urged upon him, and he received. And he said, Let us journey and proceed, and I will go along with thee, till thou come to the house of thy habitation. And he said to him, My Lord knoweth that the children are tender, and the flocks and kine giving milk are with me. And if I overdrive them, one day all the flock may die. Let me beseech my Lord to pass over and journey before thy servant, and I will lead oil quietly alone, according to the foot of the work which is before me, and according to the foot of the instruction of the children, until the time that I come to my Lord at Gabla, Jerusalem, that the children are tender. And Esau said, Let me now leave with thee some of the soldiers who are with me. But he said, Why this? Let me find favor before thee, O my Lord. And a miracle was wrought for Jacob. And that day Esau returned on his way to Gabla. And Jacob journeyed to Succoth, and sojourned there the 12 months of the year. And he builded in it a midrasha. And for his flocks he made booths. Therefore he called the name of the place Succoth. Then came Jacob in peace with all that he had to the city of Shechem, in the land of Canaan, in his coming from Padan Aram. And he dwelt near the city, and bought the possession of a field, where Lai spread his tent, from the hand of the sons of Hamor, father of Shechem, for 100 pearls. And he raised there an altar, and there he gave the tithes, which he had set apart of all that he had before God, the God of Israel.
100 pearls. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Where would he have acquired pearls?
Oh, no clue. Maybe in trade, but certainly he wasn't living near any huge
anywhere where you
could
find
oysters.
Yeah. Because, I always thought it was silver, but if I go back and look at Genesis 33, it just says 100 pieces of money. So I suppose it could have been, it had to have been of trade, I mean, it's conceivable if wherever they were, with Laban, that, perhaps there were merchants that came through town that would pay with something of value like pearls. And, if things like pearl and gold and silver, all different forms of exchange may have existed at that time, I suppose it's possible he had it from that.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, some kind of trade somewhere. Okay, I can go into the Legends of the Jews unless you want to.
Okay,
or pick up.
That's cool. I mean, if you think there's anything different there.
They always seem to add something.
A little bit here and there.
I'm sure it will be a repeat of the story, but I'll just go through it really quickly.
Okay.
At least we'll be caught up.
Yeah.
When his wives saw the anxiety that possessed Jacob, they began to quarrel with him and reproach him for having taken them away from their father's house, though he knew that such danger threatened from Esau. Then Jacob determined to apply the 3 means that might save him from the fate impending. He would cry to God for help, appease Esau's wrath with presents, and hold himself in readiness for war if the worst came to the worst. He prayed to God, O thou God of my father Abraham, and God of my father Isaac, God of all who walk in the ways of the pious, and do like unto them. I am not worthy of the least of all thy mercies, and of all the truth which thou hast showed unto thy servant. O Lord of the world, as thou didst not suffer Laban to execute his evil designs against me, so also bring to naught the purpose of Esau, who desireth to slay me. O Lord of the world, in thy Torah, which thou wilt give us on Mount Sinai, it is written, and whether it be cow or ewe, Ye shall not kill it and her young both in one day. If this wretch should come and murder my children and their mothers at the same time, who would then desire to read thy Torah, which thou wilt give us on Mount Sinai? And yet thou didst speak, for the sake of thy merits and for the merits of thy fathers. I will do good unto thee, and in the future world thy children shall be as numerous as the sand of the sea. As Jacob prayed for his own deliverance, so also he prayed for thy salvation, for the salvation of his descendants, that they might not be annihilated by the descendants of Esau. Such was the prayer of Jacob when he saw Esau approaching from afar, and God heard his petition and looked upon his tears, and he gave him the assurance that for his sake his descendants too would be redeemed from all distress. Then the Lord sent 3 angels, and they went before Esau, and they appeared unto Esau and his people as hundreds and thousands of men, riding upon horses. They were furnished with all sorts of weapons, and divided into 4 columns. And one division went on, and they found Esau coming with 400 men, and the division ran toward them, and terrified them. Esau fell off his horse in alarm, and all his men separated from him in great fear, while the approaching column shouted after them, Verily we are the servants of Jacob, the servant of God, and who can stand against us? Esau then said unto them, O then, my lord and brother Jacob is your lord, whom I have not seen these 20 years, and now that I have this day come to see him, do you treat me in this manner? The angels answered, As the Lord liveth, were not Jacob thy brother, we had not left one remaining of thee and thy people, but on account of Jacob we will do nothing to thee. This division passed from Esau, and when he had gone from there about a league, the second division came toward him, and they also did unto Esau and his men as the first had done to them. And when they permitted him to go on, the third came and did like the first, and when the third had passed also. And Esau still continued with his men on the road to Jacob. The fourth division came and did to them as the others had done. And Esau was greatly afraid of his brother, because he thought that the 4 columns of the army which he had encountered were the servants of Jacob. After Jacob had made an end of praying, he divided all that journeyed with him into 2 companies, and he set over them Damasek and Elinus, the 2 sons of Eleazar, the bondmen of Abraham. And their sons Jacob's examples teaches us not to conceal the whole of our fortune in one hiding place, else we run the danger of losing everything at one stroke.
Diversification.
Yes, absolutely. Of his cattle he sent a part to Esau as a present, first dividing it into 3 droves in order to impress his brother more. When Esau received the first drove, he would think he had the whole gift that had been sent to him, and suddenly he would be astonished by the appearance of the second portion, and again by the third. Jacob knew his brother's avarice only too well. The men who were the bearers of Jacob's presents to Esau were charged with the following message: This is an offering to my lord Esau from his slave Jacob. But God took these words of Jacob in ill part, saying, Thou profanest what is holy, when thou callest Esau Lord. Jacob excused himself. He was but flattering the wicked in order to escape death at his hands. The servants of Jacob went before him with the present for Esau, and he followed with his wives and his children. And as he was about to pass over the ford of Jabbok, he observed a shepherd, who likewise had sheep and camels. The stranger approached Jacob and proposed that they should ford the stream together and help each other move their cattle over. And Jacob assented on the condition that his possessions should be put across first. In the twinkling of an eye, Jacob's sheep were transferred to the other side of the stream by the shepherd. Then the flocks of the shepherd were to be moved by Jacob, But no matter how many he took over to the opposite bank, always there remained some on the hither shore. There was no end to the cattle, though Jacob labored all the night through. At last he lost patience, and he fell upon the shepherd and caught him by the throat, crying out, "O thou wizard, thou wizard, at night no enchantment succeeds." The angel thought, "Very well, let him know once for all with whom he has had dealings." And with his finger he touched the earth, whence fire burst forth. But Jacob said, "What, thou thinkest thus to affright me, who am made holy of fire?" The shepherd was no less a personage than the archangel Michael, and in his combat with Jacob, he was assisted by the whole host of angels under his command. He was on the point of inflicting a dangerous wound upon Jacob when God appeared, and all the angels, even Michael himself, felt their strength ooze away. Seeing that he could not prevail against Jacob, the archangel touched the hollow of his thigh and injured him. And God rebuked him, saying, "Dost thou act as is seemly, when thou causest a blemish in my priest Jacob?" Michael said in astonishment, "Why, it is I who am thy priest." But God said, "Thou art my priest in heaven, and he is my priest on earth." Thereupon Michael summoned the archangel Raphael, saying, "My comrade, I pray thee, help me out of my distress, for thou art charged with the healing of all disease." And Raphael cured Jacob of the injury Michael had inflicted. The Lord continued to reproach Michael, saying, "Why didst thou do harm unto my firstborn son?" And the archangel answered, "I did it only to glorify thee." And then God appointed Michael as the guardian angel of Jacob and his seed unto the end of all generations, with these words, "Thou art a fire, and so is Jacob a fire. Thou art the head of the angels, and he is the head of the nations. Thou art supreme over all the angels, and he is supreme over all the peoples. Therefore, he who is supreme over all the angels shall be appointed unto him who is supreme over all the peoples, that he may entreat mercy for him from the Supreme One over all." Then Michael said unto Jacob, "How is it possible that thou, who couldst prevail against me, the most distinguished of the angels, art afraid of Esau?" When the day broke, Michael said to Jacob, "Let me go, for the day breaketh." But Jacob held him back, saying, "Art thou a thief or a gambler with dice, that thou fearest the daylight?" At that moment appeared many different hosts of angels, and they called unto Michael, "Ascend, O Michael, the time of song hath come, and if thou art not in heaven to lead the choir, none will sing." And Michael entreated Jacob with supplications to let him go, for he feared the angels of Arabot would consume him with fire, if he were not there to start the songs of praise at the proper time. Jacob said, "I will not let thee go except thou bless me." Whereto Michael made reply, "Who is greater, the servant or the son? I am the servant, and thou art the son. Why then cravest thou my blessing?" Jacob urged as an argument, "The angels that visited Abraham did not leave without blessing him." But Michael held, "They were sent by God for that very purpose, and I was not." Yet Jacob insisted upon his demand, and Michael pleaded with him, saying, "The angels that betrayed a heavenly secret were banished from their place for 138 years. Dost thou desire that I should acquaint thee with what would cause my banishment? Likewise?" In the end, the angel nevertheless had to yield. Jacob could not be moved, and Michael took counsel with himself thus: "I will reveal the secret to him, and if God demands to know why I revealed it, I will make answer. Thy children stand upon their wishes with thee, and thou dost yield to them. How then could I have left Jacob's wish unfulfilled?" Then Michael spoke to Jacob, saying, A day will come when God will reveal himself unto thee, and he will change thy name, and I shall be present when he changeth it. Thy name shall be called no more Jacob, but Israel. For happy thou, of women born, who didst enter the heavenly palace, and didst escape thence with thy life. And Michael blessed Jacob with the words, May it be the will of God that thy descendants be as pious as thou art. At the same time, the archangel reminded Jacob that he had promised to give a tithe of his possessions unto God, and at once Jacob separated 550 head of cattle from his herds, which counted 5,500. Then Michael went on, But thou hast sons, and of them thou hast not set apart the tenth. Jacob proceeded to pass his sons in review. All right, we'll pick it up on the other side. Be right back, everyone.
As a bookstore for truth seekers, it's our goal to make ancient manuscripts which were once held captive by secretive institutions available for public consideration. In our generation, where wisdom has increased as Daniel the prophet foretold, we have access to many of the testimonies our early church brethren were persecuted for preserving. After being hidden for centuries, these manuscripts have been leaked from various sources throughout the earth, and it's our goal to gather these sources into printable form to make available for all who seek the ancient way. If you're looking to deepen your studies of the biblical narrative, find these ancient manuscripts and more at sacredwordpublishing.com.
With commerce being monopolized by major corporations, we feel a responsibility to return to handmade goods and to support individuals in the community. Sacred Word Publishing wants to encourage truth seekers to support each other. And one of the best ways we can do that is through offering this centralized marketplace where everyone's homemade products can be easily accessed by our fellow members in the body of Christ. Would you be interested in offering your handcrafted items in our store? Email us at sacredwordpublishingllc@gmail.com. Support the truth-seeking community by going to www.swpmarket.com. Every day, questions arise.
Are the stories in the Bible true?
What if I told you that there are hundreds of confirming witnesses,
which give intricate detail to the stories in the Bible?
Have you ever found yourself deep in the rabbit hole with questions that no one seemed to have the answers to? Join us the second Friday of every month at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for our Ask Me Anything series with author and researcher Zen Garcia, as he sheds light on the mysteries which have us all searching together.
All right, welcome back everybody for final segment. There was a lot there. Did you want to comment on anything before I move on here?
Man, there was a lot there. Wow.
Yeah.
I was like, is it just could be the same thing? No. It's a whole lot more going on. Like, wow.
Right.
Especially the whole deal with Michael there.
Yeah.
It's pretty wild, man. Even in the Targum version, there was something interesting there about the crushing of Esau's teeth and the tenderness of Jacob's. What's up with that?
In one of the accounts that we had read, it said something about that Esau tried to bite Jacob, and then God had given him protection. It was in the Legends of the Patriarchs and the Prophets that I read from last night, or the week before, and it talked about that story and elaborated. And God had protected Yahuwah had protected Jacob so that Esau, kind of crushed his teeth and he made his neck like iron or something of that nature. But yeah, it's in the.
It's about like a vampire or something. It's like what?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, some kind of. Which it makes you wonder, like, he's willing to reconcile and he's willing to forgive, but with that embrace, he just wants to show him, just a little bit of nastiness or something.
He wants to pull a Mike Tyson.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Right.
Bit off, was it Holyfield? I can't remember who it was.
Vander Holyfield's ear. Man, that was crazy.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, that was so crazy.
What? Then Angels of Arabat.
Yeah, Arabat is the 10th heaven in the book of the secrets of Enoch. It speaks about how, Enoch was taken up through the 7 heavens, but then Arabat is the stars that are even above. I believe it's the 10th heaven, and it speaks about that. So there's, I guess, the angels that dwell in that high heaven is what Michael is alluding to. But I do remember that it's the 10th heaven in that book.
So that's the name for that particular number of heaven?
For that level. Yeah,
Arabat.
For that level of heaven. Arabat, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, why is he? What's Michael's motive for coming down there? I mean, he's messing with them. And there's interesting. He's like, I'm the chief of the heavenly host, and you're prevailing against me. So why are you afraid of your brother?
Yeah.
But he was made
maybe
weak,
maybe to encourage him in that manner, or was he part, of the other troop that had gone down to show have that show of force?
That's
interesting. Yeah. And was he lingering? I don't know.
Well, because we have the 3 angels that appear to Abraham, right before the destruction of Sodom and Gomorrah. So it makes you wonder if maybe this is the same troop that's brought there. Because Michael was among them, if memory serves. Yeah, he was there.
Yes.
For the whole Sodom and Gomorrah deal.
Right.
Huh. So he's there. He's wrestling with them. It says that he was made weak, so he couldn't really. But like, I guess the angels that were with him made him weak or something. I forgot what it said specifically, or that God made him weak or something, so that Jacob was able to prevail against him.
Uh-huh.
And that's why he touched his thigh, and but then he has Raphael, which is really cool. The Raphael being so Raphael, he's an angel of healing, but he's also a pretty tough dude himself, because he's the one tasked with capturing Azazel and putting him in chains and put him in Dudiel.
Right.
So there was another mention of angels that were banished for 138 years. That was
I'm not so certain about. And it does say something about that they were the ones that were cast out.
Yeah, it's like you were reading along there, and like one thing after another, I'm like, what? I'm trying to type many things as I.
Oh, here it is. Michael pleaded with him, saying, "The angels that betrayed a heavenly secret were banished from their place for 138 years."
Betrayed a heavenly secret. Well, I'm like, in Enoch, they were bound for 70 generations.
Yeah, 70 generations.
That's clearly more than 138 years.
Right.
Don't know what the deal is with that.
Yeah, I wonder what he is alluding to. Yeah.
That betrayed a heavenly secret. And he's worried. He's like, well, because even, I mean, when you do look in the Enochian account, some of the stuff seems, to us anyway, it seems innocent enough. Like the teaching of how the clouds work. Okay, so what? Meteorology doesn't seem like a big deal, but clearly there are some things that are problematic.
Yes, and we're not meant to know, especially when they taught the whole thing of metallurgy and the blacksmithing. That was a no-no. Creating weapons of war. To Tubal Cain and the Canaanites.
Yeah. I don't think there was anything else. No, that was just all interesting stuff. It makes you just.
Yeah.
Hey, but they're like, "Hey, dude, you better get back up here. We're about to start the morning songs."
Right. Yeah.
You don't. We're gonna sick the angels of Erebot. Which, if Michael's, the big tough guy.
Right.
What's up with these guys?
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
Maybe none can take him on individually, but maybe collectively, there must be something to them.
Yeah. Well, they are the angels of the 10th heaven. And I don't know if that, that is the highest heaven, according to the book, The Secrets of Enoch. So, are they specially endowed with, supernatural capacity and power? I mean, I don't know. But...
Yeah.
All right, I'll continue with this before we go to break.
Okay.
I mean, before we get to the end here.
Yeah.
All right. Reuben, Joseph, Dan, and Gad, being the firstborn, each of his mother, were exempt, and there remained but 8 sons. And when he had named them down to Benjamin, he had to go back and begin over again with Simon the 9th, and finished with Levi as the 10th. Michael took Levi with him into heaven and presented him before God, saying, O Lord of the world, this one is thy lot, and the 10th belonging unto thee. And God stretched forth his hand and blessed Levi with the blessing, that his children should be the servants of God on earth, as the angels were his servants on high. Michael spoke again, Doth not a king provide for the sustenance of his servants? Whereupon God appointed for the Levites all that was holy unto the Lord. Then Jacob spoke to the angel, My father conferred the blessing upon me that was intended for Esau. And now I desire to know whether thou wilt acknowledge the blessing as mine, or wilt bring charges against me on account of it. And the angel said, I acknowledge the blessing to be thine by right. Thou didst not gain it by craft and cunning. And I and all the heavenly powers recognize it to be valid. For thou hast shown thyself master over the mighty powers of the heavens, as over Esau and his legions. And even then Jacob would not let the angel depart. He had to reveal his name to him first, and the angel made known to him that it was Israel, the same name that Jacob would once bear. At last the angel departed after Jacob had blessed him, and Jacob called the place of wrestling Penuel, the same place to which before he had given the name Mahanaim, for both words have but one meaning, the place of encounter with angels. All right, this is Esau, Jacob's meeting. At the break of day, the angel left off from wrestling with Jacob. The dawn on that day was a particularly short duration. The sun rose 2 hours before his time, by way of compensation for having set early on the day on which Jacob passed Mount Moriah on his journey to Haran, to induce him to turn aside and lodge for a night on the future temple place. Indeed, the power of the sun on this same day was altogether remarkable. He shone with the brilliance and ardor with which he was invested during the 6 days of the creation, and as he will shine at the end of days, to make whole the halt and the blind among the Jews, and to consume the heathen. This same healing and devastating property he had on that day, too, for Jacob was cured, while Esau and his princes were all but burned up by his terrible heat. Jacob was in dire need of healing lotions for the injury he had sustained in the encounter with the angel. The combat between them had been grim. The dust whirled up by the scuffle rose to the very throne of God. Though Jacob prevailed against his huge opponent, as big as 1/3 of the whole world, throwing him to the ground and keeping him pinned down, yet the angel had injured him by clutching at the sinew of the hip which is upon the hollow of the thigh, so that it was dislocated, and Jacob halted upon his thigh. The healing power of the sun restored him. Nevertheless, his children took it upon themselves not to eat the sinew of the hip which is upon the hollow of the thigh, for they reproached themselves with having been the cause of his mishap. They should not have left him alone in that night. Now, although Jacob had prepared for the worst, for open hostilities even, yet when he saw Esau and his men, he thought it discreet to make separate divisions of the households of Leah, Rachel, and the handmaids, and divide the children unto each of them. And he put the handmaids and their children foremost, and Leah and her children after, and Rachel and Joseph hindermost. It was the stratagem which the fox used with the lion. Once upon a time the king of beasts was wroth with his subjects, and they looked hither and thither for a spokesman who mastered the art of appeasing their ruler. The fox offered himself for the undertaking, saying, I know 300 fables which will allay his fury. His offer was accepted with joy. On the way to the lion, the fox suddenly stood still, and in reply to the question put to him, he said, I have forgotten 100 of the 300 fables. Never mind, said those accompanying him. 200 will serve the purpose. A little way further on, the fox again stopped suddenly, and questioned again. He confessed that he had forgotten half of the 200 remaining fables. The animals with him still consoled him that the 100 he knew would suffice. But the fox halted a third time, and then he admitted that his memory had failed him entirely, and he had forgotten all the fables he knew. And he advised that every animal approach the king on his own account, and endeavor to appease his anger. At first, Jacob had had courage enough to enter the lists with Esau in behalf of all with him. Now he came to the conclusion to let each one try to do what he could for himself. However, Jacob was too fond a father to expose his family to the first brunt of the danger. He himself passed over before all the rest, saying, It is better that they attack me than my children. After him came the handmaids and their children. His reason for placing them there was that if Esau should be overcome by passion for the woman and try to violate them, he would thus meet the handmaids first, and in the meantime Jacob would have the chance of preparing for more determined resistance in the defense of the honor of his wives. Joseph and Rachel came last, and Joseph walked in front of his mother, though Jacob had ordered the reverse. But the son knew both the beauty of his mother and the lustfulness of his uncle, and therefore he tried to hide Rachel from the sight of Esau. In the vehemence of his rage against Jacob, Esau vowed that he would not slay him with bow and arrow, but would bite him dead with his mouth and suck his blood. But he was doomed to bitter disappointment, for Jacob's neck turned as hard as ivory, and in his helpless fury, Esau could but gnash his teeth. The two brothers were like the ram and the wolf. A wolf wanted to tear a ram in pieces, and the ram defended himself with his horns, striking them deep into the flesh of the wolf. Both began to howl, the wolf because he could not secure his prey, and the ram from fear that the wolf renew his attacks. Esau brawled because his teeth were hurt by the bald because his teeth were hurt by the ivory-like flesh of Jacob's neck, and Jacob feared that his brother would make a second attempt to bite him. Esau addressed a question to his brother. "Tell me," he said, "what was the army I met?" For on his march against Jacob he had had a most peculiar experience with a great host of 40,000 warriors. It consisted of various kinds of troops, armor-clad soldiers, walking on foot, mounted on horses, and seated in chariots, and they all threw themselves upon Esau when they met. He demanded to know whence they came, and the strange soldiers hardly interrupted their savage onslaught to reply that they belonged to Jacob. Only when Esau told them that Jacob was his brother did they leave off, saying, "Woe to us if our master hears that we did thee harm." This was the army and the encounter Esau inquired about as soon as he met his brother. But the army was a host of angels who had the appearance of warriors to Esau and his men. Also the messengers sent by Jacob to Esau had been angels, for no mere human being could be induced to go forth and face the recreant. Jacob now gave Esau the presents intended for him, a tenth of all his cattle, and also pearls and precious stones, and besides a falcon for the chase. But even the animals refused to give up their gentle master Jacob and become the property of the villain Esau. They all ran away when Jacob wanted to hand them over to his brother, and the result was that the only ones that reached Esau were the feeble and the lame, all that could not make good their escape. At first Esau declined the presents offered to him. Naturally, that was a mere pretense. While refusing the gifts with words, he held his hand outstretched ready to receive them. Jacob took the hint and insisted that he accept them, saying, "Nay, I pray thee, if now I have found grace in thy sight, then receive my present at my hand. For as much I have seen thy face, as I have seen the face of angels, and thou art pleased with me." The closing words were chosen with well-calculated purpose. Jacob wanted Esau to derive the meaning that he had intercourse with angels and to be inspired with awe. Jacob was like the man invited to a banquet by his mortal enemy, who has been seeking an opportunity to slay him. When the guest divines the purpose for which he has been brought thither, he says to the host, "What a magnificent and delicious meal this is! But once before in my life did I partake of one like it, and that was when I was bidden by the king to his table, enough to drive terror to the heart of the would-be slayer. He takes good care not to harm a man on such intimate terms with the king as to be invited to his table." Jacob had valid reason for recalling his encounter with the angel, for it was the angel of Esau who had measured his strength with Jacob's and had been overcome. As Esau accepted the presents of Jacob willingly on this first occasion, so he continued to accept them for a whole year. Daily Jacob gave him presents as on the day of their meeting, for he said, "A gift doth blind the eyes of the wise, and how much more doth it blind the wicked? Therefore will I give him presents upon presents. Perhaps he will let me alone." Besides, he did not attach much value to the possessions he had acquired outside of the Holy Land. Such possessions are not a blessing, and he did not hesitate to part with them. Beside the presents which Jacob gave Esau, He also paid out a large sum of money to him for the cave of Machpelah. Immediately upon his arrival in the Holy Land, he sold all that he had brought with him from Haran, and a pile of gold was like the proceeds of the sale. He spoke to Esau, saying, Like me, thou hast a share in the cave of Machpelah. Wilt thou take this pile of gold for thy portion therein? What care I for the cave? Returned Esau. Gold is what I want. And for his share in Machpelah, he took the gold realized from the sale of the possessions of Jacob had accumulated outside of the Holy Land. But God filled the vacuum without delay, and Jacob was as rich as before. Wealth was not an object of desire to Jacob. He would have been well content in his own behalf and in behalf of his family to resign all earthly treasures in favor of Esau and his family. He said to Esau, I foresee that in future days suffering will be inflicted by thy children upon mine. But I do not demur. Thou mayest exercise thy dominion and wear thy crown until the time when the Messiah springs from my loins and receives the rule from thee. These words spoken by Jacob will be realized in the days to come, when all the nations will rise up against the kingdom of Edom and take away one city after another from him, one realm after another, until they reach Bet-Gubrim. And then the Messiah will appear and assume his kingship. The angel of Edom will flee for refuge to Bozrah, but God will appear there and slay him. For though Bozrah is one of the cities of refuge, yet will the Lord exercise the right of the avenger therein. He will seize the angel by his hair, and Elijah will slaughter him, letting the blood splatter the garments of God. All this Jacob had in mind when he said to Esau, Let my Lord, I pray thee, pass over before his servant, until I come unto my Lord unto Sire. Jacob himself never went to Sire. What he meant was the messianic time when Israel shall go to Sire and take possession thereof. Jacob tarried in Sukkot a whole year, and he opened a house of learning there. Then he journeyed on to Shechem while Esau betook himself to Sire, saying to himself, How long shall I be a burden to my brother? For it was during Jacob's sojourn at Sukkot that Esau received daily presents from Jacob. And Jacob, after abiding these many years in a strange land, came to Shechem in peace, unimpaired in mind and body. He had forgotten none of the knowledge he had acquired before. The gifts he gave to Esau did not encroach upon his wealth. The injury inflicted by the angel that wrestled with him had been healed, and likewise his children were sound and healthy. Jacob entered Shechem on a Friday, late in the afternoon, and his first concern was to lay out the boundaries of the city, that the laws of the Sabbath might not be transgressed. As soon as he was settled in the place, he sent presents to the notables. A man must be grateful to a city from which he derives benefits. No less did the common people enjoy his bounty. For them he opened a market where he sold all wares at low prices. Also he lost no time in buying a parcel of ground, for it is the duty of every man of substance who comes to the Holy Land from outside to make himself the possessor of the land there. He gave 100 lambs for his estate, 100 yearling sheep, and 100 pieces of money, and received in return a bill of sale, to which he attached his signature, using the letters Yod-He for it. And then he erected an altar to God upon his land. And he said, Thou art the Lord of all celestial things, and I am the Lord of all earthly things. But God said, Not even the overseer of the synagogue arrogates privileges in the synagogue, and thou assumest lordship with a high hand? Forsooth, on the morrow thy daughter will go abroad, and she shall be humbled. I guess I could stop here, since we are at the story. Oh, we got to, anyways. Yeah, we're at the end, anyways. Well, that's a good place to stop and good place for us to pick up next week.
wild stuff. 2 hours. The sun rose 2 hours early because it had set early before.
Yeah, we read that in a different place.
That's interesting.
Wanting him to stop at the side of the temple.
And Bet Gubrim, the angels of Edom, fighting at Basra. Like, right. There's all kinds of stuff there. I'm going, what? Huh? Stop! Wait, what?
Right. Yeah. Well, we can discuss some of it at the beginning of next show before going into the rape of Dinah.
Sounds good.
The slaughter of Shechem. All right, brother. Be
awesome.
blessed. Good night, all.
Thanks.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us for this video and this broadcast. We appreciate all of you and thank you for your patronage. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends. God bless all of you in your seeking.